Howdy ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jake and you are watching GD Honey Acres, another video of ours. Mrs. Jake should be joining me shortly, but tonight, because it's almost dark, I'm getting started now instead of waiting for her to get out here. We're going to go ahead and remove the Formic Pro strips, or Minorly Quick strips, whatever, it's formic acid, same thing. We're going to remove those. With the inner cover underneath this top super box, because it's empty, I got to add a shim, and then I got these white buckets to add, which is 2-to-1 sugar water. I forgot my smoker behind the camera. Oops. But it's 2-to-1 sugar water. You want to do 2-to-1 right now because it is not warm enough for the bees to evaporate all the moisture from 1-to-1 sugar water, which is what you would normally give in, say, the springtime. So here we are. Pop that inner cover off, empty off. Let's go ahead and get these guys. I'm going to set them all right there. Remember, these will decompose on their own, or the bees, if you leave them in, the bees will get rid of them on their own too. That's fine. It doesn't hurt them in the least. So our next step, get the inner cover back on. If you're like me, I have this wire mesh here. We're going to try to peel this off. Might need to use a hive tool. This is probably just something I didn't remove from last winter because I didn't need to. It's the only reason it's still there. If you're doing this and you're wearing nitrile gloves, be careful to make sure you don't rip your glove and then have an exposed skin, because bees will sting exposed skin. There we go. I'm going to set that right with those strips so I don't forget about it. So now I have this hole here in my inner cover. I'm going to take this bucket that last night I went ahead and made my 2-to-1 sugar water. We're going to turn it upside down. The thing is, there's a screen mesh right here that'll allow that sugar water to kind of get out of the bucket and the bees can get to it. But when you flip it over, there's basically a vacuum created underneath there, so it doesn't spill out all over the bees. You could do the same thing with a mason jar, a quart-sized mason jar, which I'm going to do with one hive because I do not have enough of these buckets. Then, because a medium super is too short, you need to add a shim so you're tall enough to put your telescopic cover back on. Otherwise, if you got some deep hive bodies laying around, throw a deep on there, and I imagine you'll be tall enough. But there we go. This hive is now fed for a couple days, and I am going to get started on the other hives. And it looks like Mrs. Jake is here now to help me. Hallelujah, because we only have, I'd say 20 minutes
about
of daylight left. So we are going to get working, and I'm going to save that hive that has a honey super on it for last. All right, you ready to get working, Mrs. Jake?
Yep.
Let's get her going. All right, so on this last one here, as long as we are lucky, we have no bees up in these two. What that means is when I pull those boxes off, I'm going that way with the super, unless you want to, Mrs. Jake.
If it's full of honey, it's heavy.
It is heavy.
So, your go.
And she'll finish up out here and I'll come back
I
in
don't
the
need a
end.
shim for this, do I? If it's a quart jar?
No, but I brought it anyway.
Okay.
And I'm hoping with the Mite Away quick strips up here that they acted like there's a chemical you can get that smells horrible to bees. And they might have acted like that chemical and drove the bees down anyway. I don't see any bees. So I'm going to take this. Mrs. Jake is going to remove the bee escape, the queen excluder. Then she's going to put the inner cover on. Then this one we don't technically have to because we're just using a quart jar. But she could add the shim, then a box, quart jar over the hole, close it up, we're good to go. So, Mrs. Jake, good luck.
You too.
I'll be back in a bit. There are some bees, like one or two, but all right, I'll be back. So now when you're putting their excluder back in, the best thing that I found is get two hive tools, kind of the reverse of when we removed them. Here, smoke the front.
Okay.
Put your a hive tool on each side of the hive. Take your excluder, since we're setting them up, getting ready for winter. It's really small, get them out of there.
Hold on, the smoke lamp.
We're gonna set it up for the small entrance, which is about 3/4 of an inch. Just gently kind of push it in. And hopefully not have Armageddon happen where they all come storming out at you like they're going to battle.
That only happened once.
But it's very memorable because it was scary. I think that was the only time I was ever like really scared of the bees because they just stormed me. There was nothing you could really do about it because you can't run from bees because they'll chase you.
I mean, you can if it's only one.
I mean, you got to run like 100 yards minimum to get them to stop chasing you. All right, you got the quart jar in there?
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you aren't feeding, you only have like a month, maybe a month and a half that you can feed. Because once it's below that 55 to 50 degree mark, you're not getting in your hives anymore and it'll be too cold for them to evaporate the moisture off the sugar water. So I would suggest getting out there now, feeding now like we are, 2 to 1 sugar syrup.
If you're in the Midwest of the United States.
True, if you're in the Midwest of the United States. If winter is coming, that's all I'm saying. Get your bees fed. Remember, your bees matter. They're going to support this hobby. It becomes a little bit of an addiction. But the honey supports it, and you got to have bees to make honey, and you got to have your bees to be strong through the winter to make honey for the next year. Anything to add, Mrs. Jake?
You always ask that, and it's always no.
You had some questions last time.
Okay.
They were pretty good. All right. We'll pray for you guys. Pray for us. We love you. We'll catch y'all later. We're out. Bye.
Oh, we out.
You got what I did there?
I was surprised you didn't go.